guys. My name is Sarah Schauer, and this is Schauer Thoughts, a podcast for left and right brainers, middle brainers, anyone with the peripheral or central nervous system, anyone who's got a lot of nerve. Welcome. So today's episode is going to be about the actual downside of intentionally misunderstanding people. Now, if you've been online for more than 5 minutes, you will notice that people like to misinterpret what you're saying. And while there are a lot of people who may genuinely not understand what you're saying, that's so valid, and we will help you with that. There are people who intentionally misunderstand you, misinterpret, misconstrue what you're saying in an attempt to win the conversation. Now, that sort of mentality does actually have some very serious downsides, and we will be discussing that. But before we get into that, how has my week been, guys? So freaking good. I started my book club. There's Sunday and Monday meetings, and I met my book club members, and they're just so cool. Like, everyone has like such a unique range of backgrounds. You know, some people just genuinely are like falling in love with learning. Some people are like therapists and researchers, and it's just nice to have like a community of people who want to learn about psychological richness, because we are talking about how to cultivate psychological richness. Richness, I know, does kind of suggest money, but it's we're talking about intangible things mainly. I mean, you can use tangible things to develop psychological richness, but it's more like a ambitious pursuit, right? And it just like cultivating internal values and beliefs and like happiness. But it's been so fun. Also, I have an annotation session afterwards with my book clubbers. I teach how I annotate books, and it's so nice. I'm showing people the different color system I use, and oh my gosh, a couple people submitted their annotations to the Discord board, and I got to review one, and I'm going to review a couple more when I get home. But it's just like you can see, with the annotation method that I use, it's kind of scoring a book with color, right? If you think of like music scoring, you know how you add like intrigue, drama, like using different types of music to like add a certain tone to it, right? And so the thing is since I read nonfiction and how I kind of use a color like emotion system, right? It's since you're reading nonfiction, which is purely objective, right? You add your subjective like emotion to it, and you can glance at the page, and it kind of gives another layer for understanding, right? So like it's similar to if you've ever talked to someone in person, you could listen to exactly what they're saying, right, and kind of understand. But also what you'll notice is that they have facial expressions, gestures, different like, you know, there's intonation, the rhythm, the cadence that they're speaking at, right? That adds another layer so you can, understand them. It's more nuanced, right? And so the thing is with nonfiction, usually it is like a lot of information, and it's like a wall of text. And so it's kind of just like someone speaking at you. However, with color and emotion and the way I annotate, we make it sort of like a conversation, like a narrative with the book. And so if you have like certain, it's just cool because you can look at a page, right, and then kind of get the gist of what's happening emotionally. And the thing is, it's so cool. And so I'm just helping people annotate, and people are loving it. What else? Oh, my friend who's staying with me, she's doing great. She's had like job interviews, and she's been using my car, and tonight she's hanging out with some people and using my I feel so good, you know, when a friend is like getting back out there, just so she's going to be hanging out with some people and like going, and I'm just so happy for her. She's amazing. I did also want to recommend an account to you guys. I'm going to try this weekly with the episodes, you know, certain accounts on TikTok or YouTube that I like. There's this account called Olivia Unplugged that I'm really, really liking on TikTok. Her bio says screen time therapy for the chronically online, and it's a great account to understand, you know, what scrolling and social media does to your brain. And not to tell you to necessarily stop scrolling or stop being on social media, but she talks about, you know, how to like understanding what's happening with like, you know, different neurotransmitters and like chemicals, especially dopamine, right? Because if you've ever read like Dopamine Nation, which talks about, a lot of like social media, like the hits of dopamine that come from scrolling, there was like an additional research study where it's like most of the time now it's not even, it's kind of just mitigating your cortisol or like your anxiety levels because the dopamine wears off so quickly that now you're getting anxious. Which makes sense, but Olivia Unplugged, I'm going to link her below. Such a great account. Love everything that she posts. It's incredible. And then, sorry, this is like catching you all up on my week. I've already raved about this book, but Why We Sleep, Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams by Matthew Walker, PhD. I need to give this like another standing ovation. I am not done with this book, but this book is incredible. It is masterfully written. All the information is weaved together in such a way that it's genuinely impressive. I need you all to understand this. I am an autistic lesbian. This is a male author, right? I have very, very high standards when it comes to male writers, right? And I mean, this guy has raised the bar. This is like probably going to be my second favorite book this year after Your Brain on Art. But so just a reminder, Matthew Walker is a professor of neuroscience and psychology at UC Berkeley, the director of the Center for Human Sleep Sciences, and former professor of psychiatry at Harvard. This is such a good book, right? It's not even just about sleep. It's about like, if you want to improve your memory, if you want to study more effectively, efficiently, right? If you want to learn how to remember and also forget, right? 'Cause strategically forgetting things is like necessary, right? I cannot recommend this book enough. And if he like genuinely understands what the fuck he's talking about, like on a granular level, what made me actually I already respected him. But the point in the book that sold it for me is a lot of people in like the hard sciences don't really respect a lot of people in the arts. Anyone in academia can vouch for that, right? But for example, he was at this conference and he just happened to like start talking to this person who plays piano. Like this pianist was at this conference and this guy, he was like, yeah, sometimes when I'm playing piano, I'll keep getting stuck on a certain part in like a song and I can't get it down and I can't get it down. But when I sleep, right, the next day I will play it perfectly, just like that, right? And so this, Professor Walker, Mr. Walker, was he was struck by that, and he was like, "Yeah, this pianist was just like, oh yeah," and then he kind of like, "It's nice to meet you," and kind of like walked away. But he thought he was like so struck by that point, and he was like, "That is such an interesting observation. Why does that happen?" And he spends like years investigating, researching why that happens. If a author of any science, right, any STEM, I know that I believe in STEAM, but any STEM author that takes insight or a point from an artist very, very seriously and also wants to understand why that certain thing happens and like doesn't degrade them, there's no overt, covert like degrading of their art, I'm like, that I respect that, right? Because he does talk about the jumping off point for this episode is, intentionally misunderstanding and how intentions can actually filter out your dreams. And that's what, I'm going to be talking about today. But he applies everything he says, and you can tell, right? Like, I'm going to apply everything he says about like good sleep, right? If it means I can write and communicate like this. I know you guys like the way I speak, but he is weaving together information. In the beginning of the book, he was like, you guys can read all of the chapters out of order. It's fine by me. You will understand regardless. And I was like, that's pretty cocky. And then I did it. And I was like, oh my God. Do you know how hard it is to read? Especially nonfiction books out of order. He did it beautifully. I love this book. Why We Sleep, Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams by Matthew Walker, PhD. Oh, God, you know what? Watch me say this. And then the last chapter, he's like weirdly homophobic. No. He's not. I would just, because I vouched so hard for Proust was a neuroscientist, only to get to the end. And then he like flubs it so royally. And to find out he had a plagiarism scandal, I was like, wow, now I've got to tell some people that was not correct, but it's such a good book. You need to get into it. It's not just, the thing is sleep is so unaccounted for in our daily lives, but it's like a third of our lives. And the thing is you can actually extend your study period by just sleeping more efficiently. Ain't that like, I mean, like there's, you can, incredible. And then also, this episode specifically on intentionally misunderstanding will link a lot of research. And so I've always encouraged anyone to send this episode or whatever to your therapist. This one, these sort of insights may be a little bit heartbreaking, and I would like for you guys to send them to your therapist just to review them. And therapists, oh my gosh, and my book club, therapists are in my book club, and they were so cool. I love you guys. But yeah, we're going to talk about one of the actual downsides of intentionally misunderstanding people. So we're going to start with reading Why We Sleep first. So Why We Sleep was written in 2017. However, there has been updated research on the information that he presents in this book from 2024 and I believe 2020. So his conclusion assertion still stands. And so the author, what I'm going to read you guys is just like a little build up to my point about like the why intentionally misunderstanding people is an issue. And the thing is intentionally misunderstanding is not saying that you cannot you cannot understand someone. Like if you're speaking a different language, or if they're saying something incredibly technical, or maybe their words are actually just jumbled, then that's when you cannot like comprehend, understand what they're saying, even though you make the attempt. This is about people who intentionally, like their desire is to misunderstand you, not communicate, not comprehend, right? Also, one more thing before we get into this. There is a certain meme that I want to greenlight from all of you from now on. Now, there's a lot of like jokes that people make online that everyone kind of repeats. It's like, ooh, nurse, she's awake. I hate that because whenever I talk passionately about something, I am autistic, and people saying, ooh, nurse, she's awake makes me feel like they think I'm crazy for being passionate, and it's just like kind of very ableist. And so there is a meme that I want to greenlight from you guys from now on anywhere on the internet is the joke, I don't understand you, but I really want to, right? Even if you don't understand, the fact that you want to shows intentionality, ambition, right? And the thing is like I said, your brain can't tell the difference between jokes and reality. You make that joke and you're actually going to start abiding by that joke. Wait, I do actually want to understand what she's saying. So go ahead, use it liberally. You're going to joke yourself into genuine understanding in some capacity. All right. So we're going to be reading Why We Sleep, and it's going to be the chapters, the point that stuck out to me. So the author is talking about sleeping to forget, which is important to understand if you also want to sleep to remember. And if you have this book, I'm on page 120. Well, that was on page 120. This is from page 121 down to 122. So this is just from him. Sleep powerfully, yet very selectively, boosted the retention of those words previously tagged for remembering, yet actively avoided the strengthening of those words tagged for forgetting. Oh, let me do a little backstory. So he's talking about the difference between REM sleep, which is, your more vivid dream sleep, and then non-REM sleep and REM sleep, which deals with processing and parsing through semantic information. Semantic information is factual information, like information from a textbook. So your brain, he was talking about this experiment where they gave, people in this this study, like words labeled remember and words labeled forget, right? And so this is going to be a test of non-REM sleep, which is going to be semantic, factual textbook information. Okay. So if you're like, well, how come my dreams, I'm like running, through molasses, and my old, fifth grade teacher is there, like, mooning me. That's REM sleep. That's going to be REM. We're talking about non-REM sleep, but I hear you. So, he's talking about, people memorizing a list of words, and some of the words have been labeled remember and some of the words have been labeled forget. Okay. So then he goes on to say, like, instead, Sleep is able to offer a far more discerning hand in memory improvement, one that preferentially picks and chooses what information is and is not ultimately strengthened. Sleep accomplishes this by using meaningful tags that have been hung onto those memories during initial learning or potentially identified during sleep itself. So it was not REM sleep that was sifting through the list of prior words. Rather, it was NREM sleep, and especially the very quickest sleep spindles that help bend apart the curves of remembering and forgetting. So we're talking about factual information in non-REM sleep, okay? What we have at least discovered is a rather telling pattern of looping activity in the brain that coincides with these speedy sleep spindles. The activity circles between the memory storage site, the hippocampus, and those regions that program the decision of intentionality in the frontal lobe, such as this is important or this is irrelevant. The recursive cycle of activity between those two areas, memory and intentionality, which happens 10 to 15 times per second during the spindles, may help explain NREM sleep discerning memory influence. Much like selecting intentional filters on an internet search or a shopping app, spindles offer a refining benefit to memory by allowing the storage site of your hippocampus to check in with the intentional filters carried in your astute frontal lobes, allowing selection only of which you need to save while discarding that which you do not. Now, he did say it may contribute to your discerning frontal lobes. This book was published in 2017, and I have research from 2024 and I believe 2020 afterwards that also confirms these findings. So if it's strongly likely, almost likely, right? Okay. So why this is important to emphasize is that emotional intelligence is critical to intentionality, right? We talked about like understanding emotions, like your frontal lobe has like higher order cognitive functionings like planning, organizing, right? Discerning, intentionality, like, regarding like connecting with other people, okay? So this process at night parses through semantic information. Semantic information, again, is facts, like textbook learning. If you are naturally dedicated, right, in real life, not even when you're sleeping, if you are naturally dedicated to misunderstanding people, you're naturally a contrarian. Those intentional filters will pop up when you are asleep. If you are naturally dedicated, which is an intention, to misunderstanding people, you will have a very hard time retaining information when studying, learning, or remembering anything, right? Okay? So also just a general tip about this, this process usually happens in early night sleep. Non-REM sleep is this, parsing through information is going to happen earlier in the night. So yeah, this is important, right? Because if you're, a lot of people are big contrarians. They want to win an argument as opposed to understand. And I've emphasized this a buttload of times on this podcast, right? I always say, I don't want to be right. I want to be understood. Now, a lot of people assume that I don't mind being wrong, like I'm wrong. No, it means I don't mind being wrong because if I'm wrong, I get corrected, I get feedback, and I edit it, and then I keep going, right? So understanding, comprehending, and being right are two separate things in your brain, right? One is comprehension, and the other one is validation. Like this is right or wrong. Like this is a, an assessment of this information. I am just conveying the information. When you want to be right or wrong, that is validation, okay? So if you're not trying to understand, you're actually skipping a step, okay? Are you actually comprehending it? Okay? And so okay, so this episode, I'm sorry, I just burped, will be bad news for people dedicated to misunderstanding or arguing in bad faith, especially on the internet. And there are long-term ramifications from intentionally misunderstanding people. And so the thing is a lot of people think that when they're intentionally misunderstanding someone to like win an argument, that they always have this plausible deniability, which is true. However, I did also talk about in the past, like error analysis. Truly random observational errors cannot be predictable, right? And so while understanding is not explicitly like observable. You can listen to someone disagree or just act confused, and it's like if you can tell that someone is going to be confused every single time you talk to them, you're like, in this context, when I talk about my feelings, when I talk, like, it seems like when I talk about sports, they get it. Sports, they get it. Sports, they get it. When I talk about my feelings, they don't get it. They don't get it. It seems like they cannot learn, and at a certain point, you must like kind of. It's a frequency, a rate, right? You can tell that they just refuse to learn. So I did talk about in another episode, people's lived experiences is basically their statistics. So when you think of your stats with this person, right? Every time they don't seem to be picking up what you're putting down. It's almost like they're refusing to pick it up. Statistically, this is highly unlikely that they would not get this, seeing as how they've gotten this far, right? Yes. So what we're going to do for people who are, and the thing is if you've ever intentionally misunderstood someone, I do that sometimes, and I'm going to admit, but it's usually for self-preservation. Now, obviously that can be highly maladaptive, and you can apply it in the completely wrong situation where you're not actually in, real danger. But if I'll act obtuse when I'm in an Uber with a dude. He's like, "You ever heard of feminism?" I'm like, "What? Feminism?" Like, and the thing is I want to survive, and registering as smart in any sort of capacity will seem like a threat to, a dude who's trying to make a degrading points ego. So I'm like, I don't even know what a woman is. What are you talking? Like, so if you intentionally misunderstand to preserve your safety, I get that, right? But if we want to adjust this, right, we don't want to intentionally misunderstand. We're going to have to edit our intentions. So our intentions are our perceptions, beliefs, and desires. Also kind of included in that is character a wee bit. Character, like I said, is like your stats. It's like your lived experience. But that does contribute to your perceptions, which is like your point of view. It's kind of like how you're oriented. So there's like a bunch of overlapping words, but it's mainly going to be perceptions, beliefs, and desires. So when we edit those, we're going to have to edit our intentions, all of those in a positive light, in a positive way, not like optimistic. I will explain. So if your intentions are framed negatively, your filter system is going to take out a lot of information that's not right on the money. And what that means is, since it's filtering through semantic information is largely objective, right? It's like observable, it's like from the sciences. And so your intentions do have a very heavy subjective component to them. So when you are defining your intentions, don't try to write them in the negative, which is going to add a layer of judgment to them. You want to kind of just make them like your basic constitutional code, okay? So I do have an article linked below, how to positively frame your perceptions, beliefs, and desires. It's called Use Powerful Intentions to Become Your Authentic Best. And it's from a somatic psychotherapist. I love somatic therapy. This is also kind of, this will be linked below. I'm not going to read through this part because there's a lot more information to get to, but it tells you how to positively, on the nose, on the money, frame your perceptions, like your intentions, perceptions, beliefs, and desires, right? So your filter system is going to abide by that. Now, the thing is you must abide by your own intentions, right? This is something that you prove to yourself, because if you prove it to yourself, right, your internal truths become proof when acted upon repeatedly. And this, again, is the realm of character, which is a frequency or pattern of behaviors, your stats. Your brain does need your stats when it comes to your intentions. So your truths, which is like what your beliefs and what you care about and your ambitions, must be acted upon to become proof. And then those statistics, those intentions, those neural pathways will be used to examine other semantic information now coming in, right? And so you act on something, you make it proof. This is your stats, this is your character. And now when you review textbook information, you're going to be filtering it in that same way, right? And so this is a great way when you're studying to adjust your goals from external to internal, right? So if your goal in studying, your intention is to just get an A, that means you just want to do good, right? So what's an A to your brain? Like when you're asleep, what would you? So change it from get an A to understand the situation or the information from all angles. And when you're studying, you, without judgment, get the situation from all angles in the book, right? And then you act on it, you act on it, you act on it. So when you're in non-REM sleep at night, the intention system that you use throughout the day that you prove to yourself time and time again, it will also review that information in a similar way, right? Review from all angles, and you'll retain it a lot better. Please pick up this book. It is incredible. So you can effectively prolong your study period, right? If your brain is just like, oh, that's right, that's wrong, that's right, that's wrong. Like there is a large subjective element to right and wrong. It's like in what context, and your brain is like, doing its best. So just kind of, if it's more understand it from all angles, your brain's going to be like, well, I'm going to review it from all angles. That's kind of, it's not a hack. It's like an actual, like how your brain works. So, how you also apply this to real life. Sidebar, I love that my witchy community and my spiritual community are gonna be like, I just know, I can see the comments ahead of time. I'm so excited. I know that they're gonna be like, so you want to set some intentions. Now people want to set some intentions. Well, all right. But the thing is I just, I don't know. You know that part in Family Guy where Cam and Gloria hang out and they're like, woo! Whenever I get a turn in a book to whenever I hit like a point in a book where they do touch on like spirituality or especially Buddhism, because it seems, well, like a lot of physics books, when they get to something that's like it's a moral quandary, or like there's something that's left, it's kind of not understood, they always do refer to Buddhism. So I always kind of just, I feel like I'm seeing a friend. I'm like, oh, hey, girls. I know that not every person who's a Buddhist or into spirituality or witchiness is a girl, obviously. But I just like, hey, I knew that you guys were coming up. It's going to happen anytime you study consciousness or awareness. So I'm like, what's up, guys? And this is the thing where a lot of people are like, how do you interpret this? And, how do you feel about like a spiritual interpretation of this? Well, the thing is when they ask me about like spiritual peoples or, more witchcraft or anything that has to do with any sort of organized religion, except Christianity, I have beef, right? I'm like, well, the thing is again, I'm acting as a translator here for information, right? I want to be understood, which means I have to translate like more technical things into applied terms, right? Terms that you guys can understand. So if you think of like an interaction where someone who speaks Spanish and someone who speaks English is sitting at a table and there's a translator, right? Imagine asking that translator who's right and who's wrong. Well, it's like the translator, I'm just trying to facilitate communication between these two, right? These understandings. If I were to keep injecting hey, sorry, I heard what you said and you're right. Hey, actually, you're wrong in this regard. Like the translator is actually getting in the way. So a lot of spiritual things, obviously, like a lot of times they are saying the exact same things as like scientists. But the thing is no one really makes a concerted effort to translate between them. And they, how everything is just, everyone's pitted against each other because there's like hierarchy. Obviously, there's issues with the science realm and there's issues with the, spiritual realm and stuff like that. But when you study consciousness and awareness, you're going to interact with both scientific communities and or spiritual communities. So don't try to like best one of them. Just like, oh, they're people I'm going to interact with and I want to know what they're saying. Also, the thing is this is not a one-to-one, but most of the time if you study consciousness, it's going to likely refer to soul. If you study awareness, it's most likely going to refer to spirits. And so those are not a one-to-one, but they're like generally what they're trying to say. And yeah, so you're going to interact with both the scientific and the spiritual community. And they do overlap at so many different points. So it's like, just... If you know that you're going to interact with the community, like, just get to know them, They're kind of, if you listen to understand, they are saying what this person is saying. Obviously, they do differ in application, and methodology. But at certain points, like I'm like, okay, so what you just said is what they've been saying forever. And now what you said actually could be helped by them because, it's just translating. I'm just understanding so I can facilitate understanding. Yeah. So what we need to do, back to the message, is practice discernment, informed judgments. Discernment involves reviewing the good and bad information, even for the little things. Discernment is a skill. You must build it by practicing it. It will serve you well, and it also make you smarter in your dreams. And smarter in this context is able to retain and recall much more factual information. So emotional intelligence and academic intelligence are linked. Yes, they are. Because here's the thing. When it comes to synaptic plasticity, right, neuroplasticity, there's this thing called long-term potentiation where it strengthens, synaptic connections in your brain, right? And so like you're able to retain and recall information better. And so long-term potentiation is informed by semantic memory and autobiographical memory, right? So semantic memory, mainly concerned with facts, okay? Autobiographical memory, where a lot of, I feel like, academics may actually be hurting themselves, is autobiographical memory is like place and time, and the thing is emotional state is also a state, it's a place and time, right? So like the thing is, if you ignore or avoid emotions, right, you're going to navigate around them. And the thing is your brain uses the same cognitive map to navigate physical and social places, right? For example, like when it comes to building trust with other people, trust, that basic connection is going to, like, that's a setting in your mind. That's going to be a place, okay? And so if you cannot build trust, and then right on top of trust is going to be empathy, there's going to be a lot of lacking, places to go, right? And you're going to kind of get more and more removed from society. If you always, and the thing is this doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen with academics, because I've read a shit ton of stuff from academics. They do feel like they're holier than thou, like better than, oh my God, like it's just everything is, but the thing is you're still a human being. I understand that. And you need to, emotional intelligence is incredibly important. It informs semantic, like informational intelligence. And so if you're kind of avoiding your emotions, your goal is to avoid feelings, right? And so like, it's just, that's going to filter out some semantic information, right? And then now it's kind of your long-term potentiation, like, which is autobiographical and semantic. It's kind of going to start to maybe tilt in one direction and then start to curve, loop back around, right? It all becomes self-referential. You kind of get bored, complacent. You're like, I'm not really inspired. Well, what would help you get inspired? Learning a little bit about emotions. Because the thing is oh my God, the thing is surprise, again, like I've said, is the emotion that governs learning. There is this neuroscientist on TikTok who is coming out with a book, and the book is about microdosing delight. And delight is surprise and happiness. And last year, I'm not saying this woman copied me, like that would be ludicrous, but like I said the term microdosing happiness, and she's like, I'm going to take it a step further, microdosing delight. And I was like, of course it's delight. Because here's the thing, microdosing happiness is a basic emotion, primary, but delight is a complex emotion of surprising happiness, and delight is going to be your learning emotion. And the thing is a lot of happiness specifically comes from interpersonal connections. Where can you read that? In Why We Sleep, right? And so if you're like missing interpersonal connections, you're missing out on a lot of types of happiness, because there's different levels. And so delightful situations are going to be very hard to come by without some human interaction. Can you reach delightful situations without humans? Yes, but it's going to be a little bit fewer and far between, right? And so you're navigating the world, right? You're mapping the world, and so a lot of your delightful things are kind of spaced out, and you kind of get bored. The thing is I said this to my book club people, where a lot of people, they want to pursue happiness, and they think, oh, if I achieve this level of happiness, then I'm going to be happy for the rest of my life. You must understand that happiness is an emotion, right? So swap out any other emotion with happiness, and that does not make any sense, right? So say you're looking forward to like a big promotion. You're like, I get this promotion, I'm going to be happy for the rest of my life. Imagine if you swapped out happiness with sadness, right? If you're, and this is unfortunate, say like when my mom dies or when my friend dies, I'm going to use that and be sad for the rest of my life. I will always be that same level of sad. The moment I find out my friend dies, I'm going to be sad in perpetuity for the rest of my life. I will never heal from it. I will just always be that low. The thing is some of you, a lot of you have dealt with grief, but yes, it does hurt when you think on the moments of the person that you've lost. But however, time does heal, and time does kind of decay emotions, and time will decay happiness as well as sadness. So kind of just thinking, oh, if I achieve this, I'll be happy forever. It's like, oh, if this thing happens, I'll be sad forever. No. And I know it's funny to joke, but again, don't joke too much because your brain, anyway. But like, that's not how sadness works. It's like, oh, if this thing happens, I'll be angry, the same amount of angry for the rest of my life that will carry me through. That does not make sense. All right. So happiness is a rate. You got to microdose it. Oh, God. And if you want to learn from it, you got to microdose delight. Anywho, so yeah. I do want to revisit an old talking point about intentionally misunderstanding, toxic optimism versus cynicism and extreme pessimism. So emotional intelligence, again, like is a bell chart. Toxic optimists on the way left, pessimists and cynics on the way right. Right, bell chart, it's going to be flat on either sides, and then, standard deviation in the middle. They share the same amount of emotional intelligence, and where you can see that being a massive issue is your dreams, okay? Because intentional filters. So toxic optimists, this is their frame of reference. This is their perspective. Everything will be fine, so I'm going to ignore everything that says it's not fine, right? So you can imagine, ignore everything that is bad information. That's an intention, right? And so when it comes to semantic information that's not good, right? Anything that deals with oppression, anything that deals with capitalism, anything that deals with white supremacy, erased, out, filtered. Okay. Now, the thing is pessimists and cynics, this is their frame of reference. There's no point to even trying. Everything is bad and it doesn't make a difference, right? So again, both of their brains at night are going to be saying this: nothing matters. There's no point to any of this, right? So the memory, the semantic information, textbook information, there's no point to any of this, delete. Semantic information, there's no point to any of this, delete. There's no point to any of this, delete. There's no point to any of this, delete, okay? So having the same level of emotional intelligence is going to, again, their intentional filters are both going to delete a shit ton. It's going to be hard to remember factual information either way. So discernment is going to be your dead center, okay? Discernment is taking in the good and the bad to make an informed decision, right? Really mulling over the information. Now, I know some of you are going to be like, well, I can't help, but so you're saying I should just kind of ignore like bad things that happen to me, or like, time or money. I don't want you to ignore anything, right? Some people I feel like have mislabeled themselves pessimists when you're actually realistic, right? If you are a realistic person, you know the constraints on your life. But I would encourage you to maybe start looking for positive things, and the positive things are going to be small. They're like, you're going to start off small because you've already focused so much on the negative. You are greatly attuned to what is negative. Now you've got to orient yourself and understand what is positive and build that up so you can weigh them equally, okay? So it's discerning, right? You're not putting too much weight on the negative. You have developed that skill, and it's good that you're very aware of that. However, you also need to develop the skill of like positive, like, oh, like even if it's just like someone listened to me at Starbucks, literally like me buying cigarettes, like this is embarrassing, every 4 days, I'll lie. I look forward to just talking to the guys that work at, I was going to say the gas station I go to, but the gas station I go to, it's going to be like the one on La Cienega, but like, I love those guys. Yes. So start paying attention to the little things. Okay. So there are two things that I'm going to discuss. The Zeigarnik effect and the influence of intentions on dreaming and waking states. What is interesting about the Zeigarnik effect is that this is an absolutely lethal study tool. It's what I mean by lethal is that if you want to ruminate on things that you're studying, the Zeigarnik effect will help you, but also it also causes a lot of issues, and I will explain why. So run this by your therapist. Okay, so we're going to talk about the influence of intentions on dream content, and this is from 2024, just some backup research. The study objectives are the Zeigarnik effect refers to the phenomenon where future intentions are remembered effectively only as long as they are not executed. This study investigates whether these intentions, which remain active during sleep, influence dream content. And so then they talk about their methodology, and they're doing NREM stage 2 sleep, and then they also do rapid eye movement sleep. This is their results. The number of dreams showing above criterion similarity to the respective task was significantly lower for the completed than the uncompleted or interrupted task. This pattern was confirmed through a force choice approach where, based on the similarity of single sentences of the dream reports, each dream report was allocated to one of the 3 task plans. Now, you're like, that was... Some people who love research, you'll understand that, but this is the conclusion. Active intentions increase the likelihood of dream content being semantically similar to those intentions, right? Active intentions increase the likelihood of dream content being semantically, informationally similar to these intentions. So yes, your intentions do filter, to a large degree, the semantic textbook information you take in. And so I want to talk about the Zeigarnik effect. So this one is from Psychology Today, and I'm going to talk about why this is so important to emphasize here, and also how it can be used as a study technique. But also, therapists, you might want to consider this when it comes to rumination, okay? So problem with the Zeigarnik effect in terms of productivity is when it's in operation for non-studying chores, such as creating and achieving new goals. So chores are, routine tasks, a job or a piece of work that is often boring or unpleasant but needs to be done regularly. And, chore, synonym, task, job, duty, errand, burden, work, or drudgery. Okay, and why this is important is because the thing is this is about intentions and goals. And if you interrupt a goal, right, and you're say how this can be used, right, for like a study technique is if you are studying something and someone intentionally interrupts you, right, and your goal was to study this piece of information. When you walk away from this table to do whatever the hell, you are going to ruminate on the actual information that you were reading about, because your brain, with the goal-directed behavior of study and understand this from all angles, was just interrupted, okay? This is the Zeigarnik effect. And so when you're doing the side task, you're going to feel this mental tension, this mental strain to get back to studying, and your brain is going to ruminate on what you were just reading about. Now, that obviously can be used strategically in terms of studying, right? Or like some sort of task or job that you want, done. You want to remember. You strategically interrupt yourself when you have your goal and your intention written out, and your brain will ruminate on it. Now, where this does become an issue is that this is if all goals, all tasks, right? So, for example, intentionally misunderstanding people. Now let's talk about the people whose goal is to be understood, right? Especially if you're neurodivergent, right? Or you maybe English is your second language. Your goal is to be understood when you're talking to people. However, a lot of times in individualistic cultures, right, it seems like people are intentionally misunderstanding you. And that is the case, as they don't want to connect with you. They want to dominate you, right? They want power. They want authority. In an individualistic culture, particularly America, it's a lot of people's worth is tied to their work, right? And your work is directly related to the information you know, right? A lot of people withhold information because it makes them feel powerful, right? So their goal is separate from yours in a conversation. You want to be understood. However, it seems like it doesn't matter. Like, they don't want to understand you. So when they walk away from this conversation, you do. You ruminate on this conversation. How come they didn't understand me? How come they didn't understand me? Because they did not want to, okay? But however, your goal and your intention was already set, like I discussed with studying. You wanted to talk to them to clarify something so they could understand your point of view. They did not want that, and they were able to walk away and forget about it, right? Because their goal was separate. They wanted to best you, or they wanted to siphon your energy, or, they like I talked about, like how, if you're happy or if you're upset and someone is happy and angry, right? How you can combine emotions and they almost end up calm, right? If they're using you for emotional regulation, they don't want to understand you. They want your energy so they can emotionally regulate themselves. So now where this becomes a massive issue is if you have ever been, like if you think about your parents, right? If you have a lot of conversations that you ruminate on in your mind with your parents, a lot of times your parents did not genuinely want to understand you. So now your brain is circling through these conversations again and again because your goal was interrupted, right? So the Zeigarnik effect is a really helpful study tool because you're going to ruminate on the discussion, on the thing that you were reading, your goal to understand. However, when it comes to conversations with others, if you communicate to be understood and they are clearly not trying to understand you, they walk away or they interrupt, now you are leaving, right? And you are ruminating on this conversation. It's emotional strain and emotional burden. That's what makes it an effective study technique. You want to get back to it. However, if they don't want to keep having this conversation or they don't want to understand, they will not offer you any solace, any comfort, any relief from this psychological burden, okay? But we're going to talk about how to edit that, right? So the Zeigarnik effect is mental tension created by unfinished tasks, and tasks is a goal, right? Intentions are goal-directed behavior, and so I wanted to be understood. They did not want to understand me. They could forget, and the thing is they walk away, and it almost like doesn't matter to them because the thing is they don't want to understand you. Your intentions filter out information. They are genuinely forgetting these conversations. Okay, so their studies demonstrated that unfinished goals caused distracting thoughts and poor performance when study participants tried to achieve new goals. Found that the Zeigarnik effect immobilizes the brain's various cognitive processes that usually promote goal pursuit. Lo and behold, when they allowed participants to create specific plans for their unfinished goals before tackling new tasks, the various interference effects vanished. Okay, so therapists and people taking this to their therapist. If you've been ruminating on a lot of conversations where you just wanted to be understood and you could tell that they genuinely didn't want to understand you, you can edit the goals for those tasks. However, it has to be incredibly intentional. And again, I will be linking resources, okay, on how to edit those goals and kind of close some thought loops. Not all, but a lot. Okay, so committing to a specific plan for a goal likely not only facilitates achieving a goal, but also frees up cognitive resources for other pursuits. Once someone creates a plan for an unfinished task, the brain suspends the cognitive activity related to attaining the unfinished task. The brain then resumes its goal-related cognitive activity at the planned future time. Okay? So if you ruminate on a lot of conversations where people, and neurodivergent people, autistic people especially, right? Your goal was to be understood. A lot of people genuinely don't want to understand because they want to win at conversations, and we all fucking hate it. We do. However, I want you to look at the resources that I'm about to link and take it to your therapist, right? And really edit some goals. Really remove, because it's like opening a bunch of tabs on your computer, right? Especially if you're neurodivergent, you're going to have like damn near 80 tabs open, and that's going to slow down your computer. And again, your brain is not like a computer, but I'm saying there's so much cognitive labor going on for things that actually genuinely will not be resolved that we need to come up with new edited intentional goals, right? Okay. So I did briefly touch on cognitive labor. I am going to do an episode next time about what is cognitive labor on a granular level, as well as how to tell when someone's using you for cognitive labor, because the thing is we understand the ins and outs of physical labor. However, cognitive labor, a lot of people are kind of covertly, discreetly asking you to do stuff for them, like any sort of decision making or any sort of planning. That is cognitive labor, like heavy cognitive load. And so we're going to talk about exactly what is cognitive labor and tasks. I also have another article, The Art of Sustainable Performance, the Zeigarnik Effect. Rather, the subconscious mind urges the conscious mind to make a plan with details, a location, and circumstances, okay? So when it comes to, again, this is why I'm linking this, when it comes to editing your goals for those looping conversations that you did not get to explain yourself, the goal of being understood, you're going to edit it with details, a location, and circumstances. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to location, right, location does not just mean physical location. Again, you use the same cognitive map as you do physical and social locations, right? So like you are going to, the location is with who, when. Space and time, present moment with who, right? Do the physical, do the social, right? Do the time, right? And so the circumstances, again, so details, location, and circumstances. Circumstances, again, is they're kind of repetitive, is context, episodes, environment, conditions, positions, right? Position is going to be roughly like attitudes, conditions like, is someone in a calm mood? And it doesn't actually, at a certain point, the thing is if you edit what's going to come up for a lot of these is you can edit them to be like, you kind of resolve it between you and your therapist, or like you and a journal, or like, more healthy coping mechanisms. But if you, for me personally, if I'm resolving some issues with my parents, I'm going to edit the goal. I don't care if I'm understood. I just want to yell at them. And now, is that healthy? Yes, actually, because they're grossly incompetent parents, and they yelled at me, and that's only fair. And I actually do have an episode on justice. Would I get physical? No, but if my parents are intentionally trying to misunderstand me and I just want to get something off my chest, my goal is just going to be get it off my chest, right? However, therapists, I understand. Edit your goals to not make the, new goal, yell at people, get it off your chest. So it's going to be, context, episodes. And the thing is your emotions, time, place, emotional headspace, right? Mental state. And then the thing is emotions are transient states. So emotion will be part of location. Okay. So as soon as the plan was formed, the subconscious mind no longer had to bother the conscious mind by urging it, allowing one to relax. So the plan forms and the subconscious mind, is not like bugging you. You don't feel that nagging sensation in your gut, or like, you're like, oh crap, I should be something else. Like doing something else. When you make a plan like this, and I will link it, how to make the plan, that nagging sense will go away. So it's called a cheat sheet for sustainable performance. And so I wanted to touch on this is, so there's a lot of goals built into our systems that we currently exist in, like capitalism, white supremacy, gender, like all this stuff. Like I talked with decentering, that is undoing social scripts, right? And so the thing is if you're still on script, you're still on book for a lot of things, you have not decentered patriarchy, gender, capitalism, white supremacy, thinness, like all of this stuff, you're still on book, you're still performing these roles, and these roles have goals, okay? So you need to really get off book for you to edit your own goals, okay? And so decentering is important. It's a continuous pursuit. You can do it. A lot of you are further along in certain regards than you think you are. So don't beat yourself up. You can do it. I've made several episodes on this, and there's also a bunch of stuff on decentering. Decentering does not mean abstain. It means undoing your social prescriptions and deciding for yourself how you want to move, exist, live in the world, right? Okay? So, this is a great way for sustained performance. And if you're going to sustain a performance, it should be a performance. It should be a script that you wrote, right? Or if you're an improv queen or king, you like improving, sustained improving performance is going to be a lot of yes and. It's going to be a lot of like give. Yeah. So yeah, this does also, I do want to put this in here. So this is just like explaining the Zeigarnik effect and how it kind of interrupts our daily life and how you can use it strategically for studying, how a lot of us have accidentally interacted with it because we genuinely wanted to be understood, and then someone interrupted us because they didn't want to be understood, right? And then now we're ruminating on it. We're ruminating on it. We're ruminating on it. But yes, this if you want to know how to like live the life that you want to using method acting, I did actually create like I think 2 previous episodes on this. How to create the life that you want using method acting and flow state. And flow state is a state that will get your ego offline, right? It will get the you're just doing it for the sake of doing now. And again, if you're neurotypical, you're a top-down processor, which means you'll be using inside out method acting, and neurodivergent people, we are bottom up. So we will be using outside in acting methods. It's where we use sensory immersion before imagining coming up with like a character that we're going to step into. Okay. And so that is going to be really helpful if you want to embody understanding, embody learning in a fun way that doesn't override executive functioning, right? I know that especially with neurodivergent people, you're like, this is so much. I don't want to, God, it's so much to remember. Try the method acting way and just expand your range and then go into like editing stuff, and it'll just give you like more options. Yes. So I am going to wrap this up. Some people, the sad thing about this is that I realize a lot of people don't genuinely want to understand others. They want to win arguments. In an individualistic culture, we emphasize individual goals over collectivists. And while that can be beneficial to have, like it's good to have your own individual goals, when it becomes an issue in the matter of relationships, like family, friends, partners, people in the workplace, right? So we're kind of like cooperating, and the difference between cooperation and collaboration, right? Cooperating is like 2 people have separate goals in an interaction that they're furthering together. However, they're working against each other. Like in a relationship, you shouldn't have 2 separate goals, right? Though, a lot of people emphasize like give take in a relationship. That is 2 separate goals. You know what I mean? And so you're kind of working against each other. And it's the whole like 50-50 conversation where it's like, that is a settlement. That's a negotiation style. You're trying to settle, right? If you're approaching it from that sort of way. Collaboration is where 2 people share the same goals to further, right? Like this interaction, this relationship. So why give take it's very individualistic. And so the thing is especially for like sapphics too, or anyone off script, anyone who's like out of the cis straight white rich able-bodied cultural, like the very tiny few people that fit that, most of us are going to be off script. And so if you've ever been in the theater, right? If you are off book and you want to continue a scene with someone, you're going to have to improv. And so the thing is, if both of you in this like relationship are off script, right? Like you're both going to have to give. Both of you are going to have to yes and. If one of you yes ands and the other one no buts, right? They're going to keep shutting down the scene, right? And the scene is in this case is just your relationship continuing. They keep, no. Actually, I don't like that idea. Wait, no, can you decide like what's a funny thing for me? It's give take, and it's very individualistic. So if you're off book, off script, you're going to want to give, and you're going to want to yes and this, both of you, to continue the scene. Anyway, so it does make me sad because a lot of times where you can see prolonged intentional misunderstanding is mainly with your parents, right? A lot of times you'll see like TikToks that are like, my best friend Cheryl, we've been best friends for 11 years now. And every time it's like the first time my dad meets her, right? And so the thing is he's a human, like he's an adult. To not learn someone's name after 11 years shows, right? This is his character, right? He is a grown adult who can learn a name, right? He has that capacity. He does not intend to learn her name, right? That's not a goal of his, right? He doesn't even allocate attention to remembering her name, right? He's saying it's this is a non-issue. Like this, there's no energy There's no intention, there's no ambition, there's no desire, there's no want to get to know her name, and your intentions filter semantic information. Now, the thing is your name, right? If you go by it, that is at this point semantic information. That is 100% a fact, right? That has been established. This person has been Cheryl her full life, or if she, changed her name, right? But your intentions are coming forward, and your intention is, I have no desire to invest any energy into getting to know my kids' friends, right? And so they don't, right? And there actually, I will touch on dementia types, like, and how it does contribute to dementia, but not, there's like a lot more factors. But like, it's not just, oh, my parents are old. If they've been doing this continuously for 11 years, like that's highly unlikely, right? Plausible deniability is mainly out the window. And if it does become dementia, then yes, but also, yeah. Another example is you'll see a lot of TikToks where it's like, my mom will text me in the middle of the day asking me, where am I? And she knows, I've been telling her, I told her, she knows because I come home every month with a paycheck, that I have a 9 to 5. I have a job, right? I've told my mom every day at 2, that's a work day, I'm at work. And she's always so surprised, right? And at a certain point, if you have repeated it a million times, I have a job, I work a 9 to 5, or these are my hours and they mostly don't change. She has not intended to understand, to comprehend what you are saying, right? And that it's not even your job specific. It's that she just does not want to put in the energy to comprehend anything about you, right? Or not even anything, but a lot of things about you, right? A lot of times when I call my parents, it's like, I will say, I have a podcast, right? I'm doing fine. I talk about research, and they just always, every time, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And I'm like, okay, even knowing that, I've told you, you've known this for like 12 years, because that's how long I've been doing an internet career, that I am an online internet like influencer. I make money through like brand deals, or I make money through a podcast, right? Like, and they're just like, what do you, and you can Google it. And both of you, one of you is a doctor and one of you is an engineer. I am incredibly easy to Google, like for the past 12 years straight. And what do? They do not intend. The goal is to not understand what I do, right? The goal most likely is to get some intel, right? Because if you'll notice, what parents do remember in explicit, vivid detail is always the negative shit that happened to you. Like, if they do remember something about your friend, right? Oh, remember when Samantha got pregnant and you guys had to help her get an abortion in 11th grade? They remember that, right? They remember all these negative things that happen to people throughout their life because it's intel, right? It gives them a sense of power over this individual, right? A lot of people will remember only the negative shit that happens to you. And yes, we do have a negativity bias, but also it's because that gives them some sense of power and authority over you. You could do the nicest shit every single time. However, the goal for them is to not get good information on you. The goal is to get information, intel on you, or use you as a resource, right? And so that's what they're going to remember, right? If you look at all these people that you have a hunch that have intentionally misunderstood you over time, look at the type of information they do remember from your friends, from your relationships, right? It's all shit. Well, a lot of the times it's all shit to put you down. And then what does that say about their intentions? If your intentions filter information, and semantic information is information that happened to you, right? Negative shit that happened to you, okay? They wanted to only pay attention to that. And that sucks. That really does suck. And I guess, I did cry. I'm going to wrap this up, but that is the end of this. I do have more related research, especially for therapists and especially for people, looking at related effects and related research. I have that all linked below. But I think while I wrap this up, this has been Schauer Thoughts. As someone who is autistic, reading this and truly comprehending, like, because it seems like there are so many conversations I've just had looping, like, for a long time now, and I cannot figure out for the life of me what I said wrong or why don't they want to understand? And more than likely, when they walked into the conversation, they did not intend to understand me. And the thing is that's like all I want, to be understood, a lifetime of being misunderstood. And to find out that, like, I mean, I knew that they were intending to, but to see it written in research and seeing like their intentions are they're actually filtering, like, they don't remember, right? A lot of people will, you'll remember what was, how you won't remember what they said, but you'll remember how they made you feel. Like, now what's just left is this looping cognitive burden, right? I'm trying to figure it out. And I have so many open tabs. And now I've got to edit all these goals. Like, it's just a lot. And that is the product of the thing is this is semantic information, factual information, and autobiographical information, which is episodic, right? Space and time. They both come together and they create this thing called long-term potentiation in your brain, LTP, which is like contributes to learning and synaptic plasticity and like retaining information. Where the people who are kind of, I don't want to say screwing themselves over, but you are kind of, you're making yourself have a hard time studying, remembering, right? But also the thing is if you're filtering out a lot of semantic information, right? If you're not accounting for other people's emotions, if you're not investing in emotional intelligence at all, right? If you're using people as like resources and you're not even viewing them as human beings, right? So you're missing out on a lot of actual, again, places in your cognitive map, right? That's going to both contribute to long-term depression, LTD. And long-term depression, LTD, is heavily correlated with Alzheimer's and dementia, right? So like if you're filtering out a lot of information and you're not registering people as human beings and you don't even consider your own feelings, I'm not saying that you will get Alzheimer's or dementia, right? The general term. However, if you have a history of it in your family, intentionally misunderstanding people is going to be something that you're going to have to like really cut out. And I know that I don't know if this is going to fall on deaf ears or what's happening, but yeah. So just try, if you're not in a self-preservation mode, really try to understand what someone's saying. Like, I know a lot of people in an individualistic culture, we want to best someone. We want to like feel above them and superior. However, when we go to sleep, right? The information our intentions are going to filter like everything that we studied, right? Like everything that we learned. And at a certain point, it's going to compound and it's really going to contribute to some like neurodegenerative diseases that are not reversible. So, yeah, that's just the wrap up of this. Oh my God, this episode felt great to say out loud. Wow. This is a bit longer, but yeah. And also therapists, I'm really, some of you are like, but damn, you repeat, but repetition is key learning. But thank you guys. This has been the Communal Shower. If you'd like to join my book club, you still can. The thing is my book club, I realized, I dedicated like an hour and a half to the book club every 2 weeks and then an hour to annotations. And I was like, that's simply not enough time. We need more time to discuss. So I will be extending book club hours with additional hours free of charge because a lot of people, and I agree that we're trying to build community and community needs more than nearly 3 hours every week to meet or 1.5 every 2 weeks. So I will be extending hours. So you're getting a lot more bang for your buck if you'd like to join the book club. And also the community is really great and we'll catch you up on a lot of stuff. But yeah, that's linked below on my Substack. Well, it's on my Patreon. But thank you guys so much for listening. This has been Schauer Thoughts. I hope you dance. No, I hope you guys know that when I read your messages, I genuinely am trying to understand where you're coming from. And I don't want to judge. I don't want to judge people because the alcoholism in the brain. And then, oh my God, every time I read a book, because I read a lot of books on brains and they like always have to touch on what long-term alcohol abuse does to your brain. And I'm like, they're not talking about me. I handle a day. that doesn't have to relate to me. It does. And so like I'm not, cognitive functioning. It's all, yeah. But thank you guys for listening. This has been Schauer Thoughts. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure to rate me 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. New episodes every Wednesday. Thank you and bye.